Base is dropped on a new round of Thursdays with Niko, and it is Thursday, and he is on the West Coast, so it is the middle of the afternoon for him, and we will be dropping into one of the hosts of the Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports out there on the West Coast, because there is a lot to talk about, and it has to do with Seattle. And this is what I wanted to get into with Niko this week was a couple of things, and a lot of it has to do with the Seattle Sounders and the players that have been brought up in recent conversations. We have the front office movement. We had the big announcement of the change in the front office, the new man in charge. So I wanted to get into that with Niko when he pops in. So there's a lot to get into when it comes to the World Cup. Wanted to get his thoughts on that as well before we go. But there's a lot going on in Major League Soccer. Garth Lagerwey leaves the Seattle Sounders, and he is now president and CEO of Atlanta United. He's going to be dealing with the business side of things. He will not be dealing with the soccer side of things, but he is on the business side. So you have that movement that has been going on, and it was addressed by Garth Lagerwey at his media availability on Wednesday. And so we'll get into that with Niko, as well as the new man in charge, and get his thoughts on who is the new guy who's been around. And so it's not necessarily a strange face, but it is somebody definitely that knows the lay of the land in and around Adrian Hanauer there with the Seattle Sounders. And it's going to be interesting to get Niko's perspective on what he thinks is going on there. You know, today in the World Cup, you had your groups of chaos, which is kind of how things are. And you had a lot of different combinations and permutations that were working their way through. And it was interesting to see all of that stuff happen in real time. So there's, like I said, there's plenty to catch up with Niko about. And, you know, you get into all of the details, and it's, it's just a very interesting time right now when it comes to the world of soccer, both domestically and internationally. And so when we, JP, the word, and this does come up from time to time, and the word on Jason is that right now he's still fighting long COVID, and this is the part of the network that he has built, and right now the focus on Jason is for him to get better. And I mean, you're talking, fifth and sixth month in dealing with long COVID right now. And that's the priority right now, is that when he does his on camera, when he does his radio appearances, and he calls a match, or he's doing something with college, or he's doing something with 92.9 with Atlanta Soccer Tonight, it basically takes almost a day for him to recover after he's doing that. And so literally everything that he does to prepare, then you have the event, and then he comes back, and it takes him that much time to recover. So still recovering from long COVID, but the priority right now is that Jason take care of himself. And we aren't going anywhere. So when it gets to the point to when he can handle doing multiple things, no doubt about it. And JP, you were spot on. He is the soul of SDH, no doubt about it. And I'm blessed to call him a friend. So right now, that's the biggest thing right now when it comes to Jason, and hoping that he comes back. But it is time. It is time to bring the man in, because it is that time. It is Thursdays with Niko. And Niko, there's a lot that I wanted to get into discussion with you this week. And I want to start with the transition of personnel from your part of the planet to this part of the planet. And I know that you had the chance to catch the Garth Lagerwey introduction to the Atlanta media. The short version, it's the 30,000-foot version. Forget the short version. We got a half hour with you. So the 30,000-foot version, now that you've had time to see the introduction, had time to ingest what he said, and see where it's going from here, your initial thoughts about the Garth Lagerwey introduction for Atlanta United.
First of all, thanks for having me. Hi to my guy Jason too. Wish him the best, as well to your fantastic audience who I love. Well, short and simple, he is exactly what I thought he was going to be like. Typical Garth. I did feel like he maybe did not set his objectives so firmly as perhaps when he first came along here with the Seattle Sounders. My biggest guess, or my best guess, is because he's going to have to do a lot more than just soccer operations. So just like, and we'll talk about this a little bit if I can, but a lot of what Craig Weibel said here when he was introduced, I think he got from Garth. And part of that is under promise and over deliver at times in the right situations. And that's what I did see, a little bit more cautious than usual. But that's the reason why Garth is who he is, because he's not going to tell you something that he perhaps is not ready to tell you yet. He's just getting on board. He's stepping in to a very huge pool, and he has no idea where the end of the pool might be. So am I going to doggy paddle here first? Am I going to take some long strides? Am I going to backstroke it? He's just kind of trying to gauge everything, and I thought it was another great job at Garth being Garth. Likeable, very charismatic with the media members, making sure that they know that he's about answering their questions, giving them their time, treating them like people. And then on the sporting end, just kind of letting everybody know that this is a big job. This is very different than what he had in Seattle, that he's a loyal guy because he went to this job because it was something that he didn't have here in Seattle. So I just thought it was spot on in every sense.
And one of the things that I think that folks, it may not necessarily have computed fully yet, is that Garth is focusing on the business side. I mean, it is president and CEO. He is on the business side of the aisle now, and it's not the soccer side like he was in Seattle. So, he mentioned his time in the lawyering profession, where he was learning about the business aspects of things. This is business aisle of the grocery store. This is going to Albertsons, and you're going down produce. This is not going down frozen food aisle. This isn't going down the frozen food aisle and figuring out your frozen dairy dessert. This is him going down the produce aisle now. It's an entirely different part of the store that he's going to be dealing with in Atlanta.
Yeah, and I'm interested in how that dynamic works, because Garth is not the type of guy that if he sees something wrong, he's not going to address it. And the man did a fantastic job down here because of his versatility, his ability to learn. And he wasn't just a great negotiator when it came to contracts and figuring that salary cap space. I mean, he is literally the Doctor Strange of the salary cap space. He could fit any sorts of shapes, turn back time, all types of stuff. So I'm interested in how the dynamic might work. But yes, that's why I believe he was very cautious about where he was going, what he was going to deliver, because it is a total different position that he had here in Seattle, where it was just chief of soccer operations, GM. I'm going to work with this. This is totally different. I'm sure that he wants to get in there, figure out where everything's at. I mean, this all happened very quickly. And regardless of how brilliant I feel like the man is, I mean, he's not a beautiful mind. I mean, he's going to need time to just kind of gauge everything in. So I'm just interested in how that will play out. But what you get, though, right off the bat is someone who is transparent. He's not telling you he's there to know everything. He said, I'm going to mess up. I guarantee you that, right? He's immediately showing his human side in order for you to get that this is a difficult job, but he's going to do everything in his power to get it right.
And you have, someone in Garth who admitted that he's going to give you the obscure movie reference. I think he dropped The Matrix, if I remember correctly, as in the press conference. And he's going to be an individual, as you mentioned, who is going to sit there and take opinions from all sides of a particular issue, But he's the guy that's going to still make the end decision in all of this. He's not afraid to take opinions to understand the depth of an issue. But at the end of the day, he's going to be the one that's going to make the final decision after he culls all of this information, pulls it into this pile, and creates the jigsaw puzzle to figure out what direction he wants to go.
Yeah, and I mean he's a lawyer, man. He's not gonna divulge any information. If he's gonna be very careful on what he's gonna tell you, and he's gonna be precise on what he says because he knows that his word is his currency, right? That whatever he tells you at this moment is what it's gonna be. So that's why I was just once again just breathtaking about how he just handled all the questions that happened. It was a little shorter than I thought. Or I anticipated. Believe you me, that there were times where me and three other guys would keep guard for 35 minutes or more. So I did think it was a little bit short, but I just thought he answered things right.
Well, and he did do some individual stuff off camera when the press conference itself shut down. He had the one-on-ones with TV, and he did the one-on-ones and the little close groups with radio and with Arnica Leafy, and so he did catch up with folks as a part of it. After the big bright lights came down, it was time for the individual lights to just go and shine right in his face.
Yeah, but if I had to guess, unless they're saying, "Hey, Garth, we don't want your opinion at all on this," because he's someone that respects chain of command or a team building. He understands what he has to do. If they don't tell him, hey, we don't need your input on this, he's going to take all of the context, all of the information and everything. And I can imagine a moment where as an owner or, as an organization where you wouldn't be like, hey, Garth, can you help us out with this salary cap space? I mean, I can't imagine.
And now that there is a replacement that was just as large of a press conference and an event in Seattle in announcing who was going to be taking over for Garth Lagerwey. For those of us on this side of the Mississippi River who don't understand the impact that Craig has and the kind of individual that you're getting in the Garth Lagerwey position, what does Craig bring to the table?
Oh man, I thought it was a great first impression. I will say that. I think that he is definitely been learning a lot from Garth, and he was very straightforward about that. And I don't want to, downplay his own attributes, but he was just very engaged, and I think he did a lot to let the fan base knows that although you might have not heard his name over the last 10 years, when he comes to the Seattle Sounders, he is a PNW guy. He is right here from the area. He played for the Sounders. He has all kinds of connections with the community. And that's important for this fan base. They want to have someone who cares, who bleeds the rave green, that is going to be out there for the organization. So I thought that was great. It was interesting how he mentioned that at no point when he was first hired in with the Sounders did he ever think that he was going to be the guy to take over Garth. That when he came on to do a role, and that was it. He was very, straightforward about that. He even said that when it came down to Garth and future contract negotiations or anything, talks about the future of that position, he didn't want to be involved. He just wanted to be completely away from it, as respect for Adrian Hanauer, the owner, as well as Garth, right? So I really thought it was interesting that he wanted to separate himself from that so they can make that decision. So Adrian Hanauer, and I quote, wouldn't feel obligated to give him a position. So he felt like he earned it. There wasn't much communication, or there wasn't much information about if there was an interview process. Adrian didn't get into that. But I thought he was great. I think he's qualified. He talked about already scouting quite a few guys. I'm sure that was done through Garth Lagerwey and, Sean Henderson and the rest of those guys working behind the scenes. But I was very pleased on how he came across. Also very transparent, trying to let you know who he was as a person too. But he just has big shoes to fill. And things start to change when things get tough, and this year is going to give you no time to just settle, right? He talked about being with this team already 18 months and being comfortable with the players, and he already knows what's going on. He's dialed in because he's been working with this team. But I think it's a different ballgame now. Now you're the guy. Now you're the person that's going to have to answer on why the team did or did not well in the Club World Cup, or why they ran out in the first round of Leagues Cup, right? So just things change up.
And Club World Cup right now still doesn't have a time frame, still doesn't have a venue, so we're still waiting on all of that. So not holding my breath on that one. Craig Weibel now in charge on the ascending to the Garth Lagerwey former position there in Seattle. You mentioned players and decisions, and this is something that I wanted to get into you with. It was a conversation that you were having on social media about particular players and their possible futures in Seattle, their whole DP-ness of it all. The names Christian Roldan, Jordan Morris were a part of the conversation. And I wanted to kind of flesh this out a little bit, because there's only so much that you can say in 280 characters. And I know that a lot of folks that were going back and forth with you on social media were trying to cram a whole lot of information into 280 characters, and you really can't do that. And so I wanted to kind of flesh this conversation out to give it its proper due. Take me into the beginnings of this conversation and the beginning of this idea that Jordan Morris and or Christian Roldan may or may not be around in Seattle next year. This was something that came across your bow, and I was like, okay, he's having some real deep conversations here. I wanted to put a lot of detail on this conversation because of all of the slings and arrows that were coming your way.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that you give it a platform, your platform, to just kind of talk about that and clarify a couple of things, because of what you just said. There are times where we get sent a tweet via DM, and at times, especially early in the morning, you're a little quick to answer because it maybe strikes something that was in the back of your head and back of my mind of a conversation I've had or someone who I talked to. But long story short, there was a tweet that mentioned that Christian Roldan and Jordan Morris were possibly looking into having DP contracts. And that's all I had to read at the time. That's all I focused on. And I said, hey, I heard something similar to that, that obviously they're under contract through the year. So there's nothing going on right now, but that for future reference, and whenever they either get that contract extended or they go into negotiations, both could be asking for a DP contract. And that's it. What I didn't go, and I didn't clarify, and honestly, I didn't quite think about or saw, was that the tweet that I was kind of quoting talked about the Sounders not considering Jordan for it. That is, I can't confirm nor deny. I don't have any information on that. I find it really hard for me to believe that they wouldn't consider Jordan for anything. The Seattle Sounders are an organization that are very grateful to those players that have been important to them, and Jordan has definitely been that, a key component on some championship teams, not to mention the fact that he's Seattle born and raised. He's a huge face of the organization. And Christian Roldan, who to me is the most consistent and important component, or he's up there with the Loderos and the Raul Ruidíazes. He just does a different type of role. And he might not be someone that you can tell in the game how key he is, because he's doing the dirty work, and he's playing right mid, and he's playing center mid and wing and right back, and he's just doing absolutely everything. And that's Christian Roldan. So to just conclude it all and compact it into one thing, yes, I have been told by quite a few people whose opinions and comments I take very seriously, that there is a sense that both of these players could be looking for an increase in their pay and getting to the DP side of the threshold. And I believe that. I really do, especially taking in consideration that Jordan Morris is making over $1 million, Christian Roldan is close to it, and Christian Roldan, honestly, to me, is someone who could ask for all kinds of money. He's earned that. It was a 5-year deal when he got it, and he's been amazing in those 5 years. He's a guy that just doesn't miss a day, and that's why this year was so crazy that he was off for a significant amount of time, getting a procedure done just to completely get back at the end of the season, even if it didn't matter to anybody. He wanted to get back. He broke all kinds of expectations on when he was going to be back because that's Christian Roldan, a guy that he would be an upgrade at that position and many positions for many teams in MLS.
Halftime here with Thursdays with Niko here on SDH, and let me dive down into this a little bit. And I know that since we're in the in-betweens when it comes to windows and waivers and reentry and all these kinds of things leading into January windows, do you have a gut feeling as to what could happen with this roster, including what may or may not go down with Jordan Morris and Christian Roldan? What does your gut tell you about how this roster could look heading into one of the more important seasons, I think, in Seattle's history, considering that you're going to be on the world stage whenever that moment does happen?
I think for now it's going to stay pretty much the same. And Craig Weibel mentioned it during this meeting. He talked about believing in this team, the players that were in that group, the team that got you a CCL championship, that he didn't feel like there was need to rush into making huge changes because he didn't feel like they were necessary. So everything in the horizon tells me that this team is going to be pretty much the same with some additions, because he was kind enough to give us a couple of clues, nuggets about the team following a couple of World Cup players that had not yet reached the round of 16. So, they got fans all over the city looking for clues and scavenger hunts. But that tells me that they're interested in a couple of guys. But that would mean that some guys would have to go because the roster is full. There's salary cap things. My mind goes directly into Nuhu, a player that's been talked about leaving for a very long time, very promising, just played 90 minutes just about every single game for Cameroon. A guy like Javier Arriaga, that the CB position, the center back position, is very loaded here for the Sounders. So whether it's him or whether it's Reggie, oh my goodness, why am I escaping my name? Anyways, there's just a lot of talent in that position that could potentially come and go. I do know for sure that the team is looking for another striker. Obviously, Will Bruin no longer with the team. Right. That is somewhere where you want to replace. There's still no confirmation on whether or not Freddie Montero is coming back, although everything kind of points to him being back next season. But that's where for sure you're going to get another player. It's someone who could either work with Raul Ruiz, or is going to be a compliment to him, or is going to be just there to back him up. So that's one that I for sure know that they're looking for. Left back also, because what I just mentioned, I think Nuhu could be a commodity that a lot of clubs would want to go for because of everything that he's done over the last few years. And just kind of what he is overall, just an athletic talent, just one of those physical phenoms. So yeah, that's basically what I think is going to happen roster wise. I don't see any moves with Christian or Jordan. That definitely I completely take off the table. They will be here for this year and this upcoming difficult, quick year for sure. But some of those other additions, they could be welcome.
When you're looking at the challenges of a salary cap, I think that's one of the things, especially for any club in Major League Soccer, you're dealing with a salary cap. And I think it's just as important to build from within as what we've seen from Seattle and their academy and S2 and Tacoma. And you're seeing, young guys that we always consistently see, like an Obed Vargas before he got injured. The importance of being able to build from within to give you that flexibility where you can chase after an Albert Rusnak and make sure that you can bring in a Freddie Montero at the same time, who understands his place and gets that he's almost like the Udonis Haslem, I guess, of the Seattle Sounders. He's that guy that's that perpetual veteran that you can bring in at the veteran minimum. He understands his role, and he's happy to be a part of things with the team. From a Seattle perspective, they seem to have become very, very comfortable. I'm not going to say it's an easy task, but they've become very comfortable with the development from the underneath, and at the same time bringing in that high priced talent. It's a very delicate dance that you have to do in Seattle.
It's self-sustaining, and it's worked, and it's something that they'll continue to do. Something that Garth was a big part of, and is putting a lot of that money, that investment in a development program, and getting guys out there from the academies, building a structure as well as a curriculum that goes the same from the academy to Tacoma Defiance all the way to the Seattle Sounders. And the guy I was talking about was Jackson Reagan. I apologize, total blank in here. And he's the perfect example of this, right? You felt like you don't need to go out there and get a center back because you have this guy in Defiance that has the frame, has the foot ability, the passing ability, the vision, and you bring him on. Guy gets hurt, he gets his chance, he completely kills it. Over to Vargas, right? He's someone that nobody, at least outside of Seattle, really had in their minds. Only they're very into, the youth development programs and the GA Cups and all of that type of situation. And then he comes in and it's absolutely masterful. He gets hurt, and there's other guys that come in like Danny Leyva. So yes, that is exactly what the Sounders have done. I've told you this in various occasions, is the ability to maximize your resources, veteran contracts, homegrown contracts, DPs, TAM level stuff. And that's something that's just part of that identity here in Seattle. Every single time a guy comes in, like the Gustavs or the Kim Kihis that you might have not heard, or they've got released from their team, and a guy like me that doesn't really know him is asking questions, and all of a sudden they get in the field, they work. That's because that's the identity of this team, and that's what made us successful for so long. And that's one of the questions that I had for the owner in this meeting, right? With Chris Henderson gone and Garth Lagerwey gone, that's two big components of your success over the amount of the time this team has been. Why are you so comfortable that this team will continue to be successful? And you talked about that. Is everything behind the scenes, the identity. People go and the brand stays, and the club's been successful. So that is part of that. Is exactly how they modified their roster. They have a sustainable situation in terms of roster building.
Let's get into the world competition. And I refer to that particular nation that it's in as just host country or host nation. I do not identify it by name. I don't use the Q word to identify that nation, and I don't want us to get in any kind of trouble. So I just refer to most of our programming as the World Soccer Review when we do the nightly recaps. When it comes to we're getting close to the end of the group stage, and there are some things that are yet to be decided, and a lot of stuff has drifted into chaos. As we are 3/4 of the way through the match days, getting into the round of 16, what have been some of your surprises so far in the world competition overseas?
A lot of surprises. I think that the mighty have fallen early in this one, and even if it is, just a big hit like Spain took, yes, they got through, but man, that pride is hurt, and they got to figure it out, because if they go in with the same mentality, the same tactics against Morocco, they might see themselves out of this World Cup early. Obviously, everything that had to do with Belgium was just so weird, so odd, but you could definitely see that these guys are just not at their prime. Lukaku looked like a guy that hasn't had 90 minutes in a very long time. And, oh, man, it was painful. He had one right in front of goal. He's just not there. So just I think what this World Cup biggest surprises are those teams that believe that just by having names and these guys that have been there for a long time, we're just going to cruise through. And that wasn't the case. Teams like Japan that are young, quick, dynamic, very vertical, straightforward. I mean, the way that they use the long ball, not just to clear it. I mean, they're running the ball just in absolute counterattacks of just long balls behind that line. So that's been interesting. surprising too. Some disappointments for me. Canada, just their inability to just change their identity in some ways, or not identity, just concepts of the game, right? It's okay that you want to be aggressive and show the talent, and you got this golden generation of Canadian players, and yes, you're playing with house money because you haven't been here and whatever. But I thought that you never know how long you have a golden generation,
Yeah.
or ask Belgium about it, Colombia.
Well, you know it.
And so I think that you should take a better chance at getting results. It was something that they could have done against Croatia that they didn't do until it was too late.
Yep.
I felt like in this one, again, same concept. Your lines are too high. You're playing out of the back, but Borjan just isn't the guy to play out of the back. Don't give him the ball back. Just simplify your game. And I wish they would have gotten a lot more with the talent that they did, because I just can't be just complacent with the fact that this team showed the world that they're there. They had the ability to do more.
And I think that Borjan's secret was the long pants.
Yeah.
He did not use the long pants, especially on match day 3 when they needed it the most. He didn't use the long pants. I think that
is the first time I've heard that, but I like it. I like it.
Now, and obviously there are questions about John Herdman making history for coaching both a men's and a women's side in World Cup competition. Very, very cool. But I think that Herdman, if you want to discuss Canada here quickly at the 3-minute warning, we're playing Canadian Football League rules. Herdman, first off, you don't sit there and say that you're going to F your competition in an upcoming match. You don't do that on the world stage.
Nope.
Then after that match is over, you don't avoid shaking the hand of the opposing manager. And it seemed like there were too many things that John Herdman might have been trying too hard to do when you shouldn't have done it and just kind of let the game come to you. It's like Herdman wanted to press and push in public opinion, and he came up craps each and every time he rolled the dice.
I think he was hurt over his own success, maybe believed it too much, thought that he was going to go in here and just run the World Cup. And that's just not how it works, man. And maybe that's where experience comes along. And that's when having a young team might do you wrong. But that's your job as a coach, is just to realize that, hey, man, yes, I ran through CONCACAF. Yes, I'm number 1. I got some really talented players, but I'm not going to be able to just run through people. This is the World Cup. This is the best stage in the world, baby. It's played differently. Sometimes you got to be pragmatic. Sometimes you got to just simplify it. Look at what Greg Berhalter did, man. Look, he's been killed on social media because he decided to bring in Zimmerman and drop to a 5-man backline. He got the result. Sometimes you have to do those things, whether or not some of the subs he brought in worked and maybe were able to do their best job of what they were supposed to do. That's different. That's not on the coach. I'm sorry, but if Shaq Moore comes in and can't give a short ball or a long ball and looks a mess,
and can't dribble to the corner to kill a match out,
that's on you. Haji Wright, same situation. If he just doesn't have the legs to finish a clear chance in front of goal or press a little bit higher when you just came into the game, that's on the player. That's not on the coach, man. So I just think that there isn't a need for you to just go at it one way. There are times where you're going to have to grind it out, play a little ugly, but you get the result. And I thought Canada could have used some of that, and they would have got more results.
Last team that I wanted to talk to you about this week is El Tri. And
man.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I anticipated your response was going to be. I mean, we kind of knew that regardless of whenever the tournament was over, that Tata Martino was done as manager of El Tri. It just so happened that it was at the end of the group stage. Mexico does not make it out of group despite chaos at the end in match day 3. And once again, you talk about waiting too long to do something. They waited too long, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we've got to do something, and you're not successful, and El Tri got bounced too.
Although Tata Martino had some questionable calls in that, bringing Raul Jimenez. I didn't think he was informed. He showed you every time he stepped on that field that he should have not been in this roster or used as much as he did when Funes Mori's got 10 minutes in the entire World Cup.
Yep.
Yes, there were situations where Hector Herrera should have not been your starting midfield on a 4-3-3 where he's going to have to do a lot more than just put balls through. I think that this talks a lot about, and it's something that I've said before in this show, that Mexican Federation as a whole. There is no new generation coming in, and these players it's just what they have, and they're not in a great moment. Chucky Lozano was supposed to be the face of this franchise, and he didn't show it. He was lost. I'm sorry to tell you, but whether it's not being clutch or not live up to the moment, or like in Spanish they say, you got a block of ice in your chest, whatever it was, he just didn't come out to play. So you can't blame a coach when the players are not showing up. They're not showing up to play, man. They just didn't. Poland was a very bad team, and they made it. Like the kid that was part of the group project came in the last day, put his name on it. That is all they did. They just kind of cruised through. And Mexico couldn't do it, right? I mean, they played great for 60 minutes against Poland. Questionable calls on some of the things that Tata did, but at the end of the day, the players didn't put it away. Against Argentina, great first half, and then they can capitalize on that in the second half. You can't leave Messi open on top of the box. I mean, if you don't know that as a professional player, Hector Herrera, then maybe you shouldn't be in the national stage. Just small things that really came back to bite Mexico in the behind, because I was rooting for them. I was hoping that they got to that stage. Those fans are amazing. A lot of those players showed that they were good. Not many, but Vega, Chavez, Montes, the center back, some of those players, I thought they had a good showing, but most of the players that were in those games for Mexico just came short.
All right, what's going on at Soccer Bar and Pulso Sports and in the life of Niko Moreno in the next 6 days when we meet again?
That's right. Well, Soccer Bar, we just had a great talk about some of the similar points in Spanish. So go ahead and check that out. We'll be back on Monday to talk a little bit more on what's coming up. When it comes to Pulso Sports, I have a pending Q&A with all the fans about Garth leaving, Craig coming in. So I do have that pending. I'm hoping to get that done at some point tomorrow. So I'll open my Twitter space. I'll talk a little bit about what's going on with the Sounders, and we'll allow you fans to ask me whatever you want about it.
El Rolo NW, Thursdays with Niko, catching up with life in Seattle, considering how our two areas are intertwined because of a front office move that a lot of folks are saying was one of the best moves that you could make in the transfer window for Major League Soccer, getting ready for the 2023 season. Niko, as always, my friend, great to catch up with you on Thursday or any day of the week. You know you have golden ticket status. You can crash whenever you want. So we will catch up with you next week, my friend, and do more about what's on your mind.
Appreciate y'all.
And since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. Play it safe, everybody. Mucho platio. We'll see you next time. And if I can, this one. This is the button I'm supposed to push. We'll do it again next week.